Hello, welcome to the Internet Chess Club. This is Grandmaster Miguel Illescas, and we are going to analyze Game 1 of the World Championship match final between Magnus Carlsen and Nepomniachtchi, which the first game was played today in Dubai. Okay, let's have a look at this game. Nepo was playing with the white pieces, and it started with e4. This was no surprise because this is the sharpest move. And of course, it can bring the Russian player the kind of position he's looking for. Let's not forget that he has a style very good with calculation, dynamic chess, and e4 is, well, I mean, you have more chances to get this kind of positions. Well, I was expecting e5. In fact, after e4, there are not so many moves at top level. I mean, nowadays, defense like the French or the Caro-Kann are not in very good shape, and the Sicilian is extremely sharp and dangerous. So e5 is very solid. It goes very well with Magnus' style, and it was very much expected. After the moves knight f3, knight c6, here in the last years it became in fashion the moves bishop c4, which comes to the Italian opening, and Nepo was of course playing this move a lot. But for today's game, he played the main line of the Ruy Lopez, bishop b5. On the last years, we were watching a lot of games with knight f6, going to the Berlin defense. But today, Magnus played a6. This is a very well-known weapon, the classical Ruy Lopez variation. And Magnus has a big experience with that, especially in one line which he tried to play today, the martial attack. We will see. Let's not go advance what happened in the game, but well, here for people who is wondering what happens if white takes the pawn after bishop c6, white can take this pawn e5, but we know very well that after queen d4 there is a double attack over e5 and d4, and when the knight gets to a safe place, black takes on e4 and gets the pawn back with a very good position. So everybody knows that white has to play bishop a4 here, or, well, I mean, he can go bishop c6 like Bobby Fischer was playing in a very slow way. But nowadays with computers, there are some clear ways to equality in the exchange variation of the Ruy Lopez. So bishop a4, knight f6, castle, and in this position we have the open line with knight e4. It is a bit dangerous because black is opening the center with the king still on e8. And white can play moves like rook e1 or even d4, trying to set some traps like e4 is immediately bad, because white could use the position of the king, as we can see in this line, for example, to win a piece. Here we can see the powerful action of the rook on the e-file. That's why after knight e4 there are some other moves, but Magnus went for the more classical bishop e7. This is known as the closed line of the Ruy Lopez. And, well, here white plays rook e1, b5. Now, yes, because it's a real threat to take on e5 and after bishop c6. That's why black plays b5. And here, well, black in this game went castle. Usually, the classical Ruy Lopez goes with d6. White plays c3 to play d4. And after castle, white plays h3 to prevent, because if d4, bishop g4. And after h3, next move is d4 coming, and this is a very theoretical position, and according to modern theory, white is still having some slight edge. It's of course very slightly, but quite comfortable, and that's why in modern times black is trying to avoid this classical line, playing castle. And what is the point? If white plays now c3, intending to, I mean, transpose after d6, h3, and d4. Then after c3, black has a very interesting option, the martial attack, d5. And this gambit, because black is sacrificing a pawn, we can see e d5, knight d5, take, and white is a pawn up. This has been played many times by Magnus Carlsen, so it's almost sure that Nepo should be very well prepared to meet this line. I have a lot of memories of this line. What is the black's idea? I mean, the pawn is very healthy. I mean, it's a central pawn, very well protected, but black gets a very big counterplay on the king side. Let's have a look. I mean, all black pieces are ready to attack, and the position becomes really, really sharp. There is a lot of theory. It's very concrete. And I remember I have some memories of this martial attack when with Vladimir Kramnik, when we were working for preparing for a world championship with Garry Kasparov, and we were working for 1 week trying to get advantage for white, and well, I mean, we couldn't find really a way to. Kramnik, he wanted to take the pawn, keep it, but it was difficult. You know, black is always getting a lot of counterplay. And then, okay, in modern theory, white usually tries to play a bit different. After castle, he tries to avoid all these lines and plays moves like a4 or h3. In this game, we saw the move h3. What is the idea? Well, first of all, we kind of stop the d5 idea. The main idea for white is to go to the main line after h3. If black plays d6, then we can already go to c3 and later d4 as in the main normal lines. But of course, after h3, black has some other options. But one very important point is that now the martial idea after h3, d5, sorry, h3, if black now plays d5, now it's not so good because the pawn is not on c3, it's on c2. White has a this tempi instead, which is useful, as we will see, because after take, knight e5, this is still playable. There is some compensation, but not so much, because in this kind of positions, white can play knight c3. And this makes an important difference with the normal martial lines. That's why after h3, black usually goes for some other moves. And here, on move 8, it already came a big surprise, or at least this was probably Magnus' idea to surprise his opponent with a move which has been played very, very few times. Look, this position, we have a lot of theory, many thousand games, 3,000 games with bishop b7, which is one of the main moves, and well, a lot of moves with d6, of course, and he came with knight a5, which was really a surprise to many, many people, including myself. Black is sacrificing the pawn e5, and he wants to make sure he kills this bishop on b3. In fact, the bishop has no escape. That's why Nepo, he played quite fast. He was prepared for this rare move, knight a5. He went knight e5, take, and now black develops bishop b7, attacking on e4 with two pieces. Nepo played d3. Black answered with d5, makes a lot of sense. He's trying to open the position to his bishops, especially to the bishop on b7, which can make a lot of pressure on the king side. In fact, after pawn takes d5, here it came, I'm not going to say surprise, but in previous games, one Russian grandmaster, Alexei Bezgodov, he tried twice knight takes d5, which is a normal move, and trying to get some kind of positional compensation, making both bishops on the long diagonals and very slow play. But Magnus had prepared a bit differently, and he went queen takes d5. The idea is obvious, be careful. I mean, if you think you can win a tempi attacking the queen, we can get a very big surprise with queen g2 mate. So this was obviously the main idea for black, and Nepo went queen f3. In fact, he reacted very fast. It's clear he was well prepared to meet this knight a5 idea. And after queen f3, white wants to trade queens, of course, and well, to play an endgame with pawn up. You may think, well, but you know, now after queen takes, knight takes, bishop takes, pawn takes, white gets very ugly pawns. This is true, but in exchange we get a very nice pawn up on the queen side, and this would be for sure clearly better for white. So after queen f3, Magnus' preparation was bishop d6, and we have to say that this was already played in one game, Oleg Korneyev versus Igor Natav, two strong players in the year 2006. And I don't remember in that game, I think white took now queen takes d5. This was Korneyev Natav, queen d5, knight d5, and black got good compensation, still he lost. In this game, Nepo played very fast, and it's clear it was his preparation. He went king f1. It's a very interesting move, but it was not really a novelty because the database is telling us that this move has been played in some correspondence games. And what is the idea? Well, white knows that the queens will get off the board soon, and then the move is useful to bring the king to the center. But the second idea is, well, here we have to check what happens if black takes on e5. If bishop e5, the thing is very simple. White takes. After rook e5, white is a pawn up, a very clear pawn up without any real good compensation. If knight b4, we can play knight a3. It's a pawn up. So bishop e5 is a mistake. But what about queen takes e5? What do you think? This looks like a clever move, because if rook takes, then bishop f3, and black is winning a piece. But Nepo's idea is to take on b7, and here we can see how important the king of f1 protecting the rook. This was the main point of this move, king f1, to protect the rook. It's true that black can still try to get some counterplay with queen h2 to check, but analysis is showing that white has nothing to fear, because after check he has a very important move, bishop e3. Everything is protected, and finally white can be pawn up and to claim an advantage. That's why Magnus' preparation was a bit different. After king f1, he played very fast rook fb8. This was still, I think this was still some theory. Yeah, these games, correspondence games, which we were showing. And here, what is the point? The rook protects b7, and then white has to be careful. If we play now the move knight c3, it's a big mistake, because now it follows queen takes e5, and of course now if queen b7, then black can take on e1 and be full rook up. But the point is that after queen e5, the position is lost, because if rook e5, then we have bishop f3. As we saw already, this is giving black an advantage, a piece up. So it's a tricky move, rook fb8, and Nepo was thinking here for the first time in the game. He was thinking for a while. Finally, he took on d5, knight takes d5, and he played bishop d2. Again, he has to be careful, because if he tries to develop immediately knight c3, this is a mistake, because knight b4, and we can see that c2 is very weak. If rook e2, then take, and knight c2, at least black is getting a big advantage here. After bishop d2, still Magnus was on his preparation. He played very fast c5, and we can see he's getting some good space with 2 pawns on the 4th rank. White is only in 3 ranks, and 2 bishops, very nice bishops, and a beautiful knight. So the compensation for the pawn is quite good, especially also white has double pawns, and we can say that the position is more or less equal. In the game now, both players started to think for a while. In fact, the next move was very difficult for Nepo. He had many options, and he went with a novelty, very interesting move, knight f3. Of course, it was not a preparation. He was thinking more than 15 minutes. And the idea is interesting. I mean, he's getting freedom for his knight, which was doing really nothing on e5. It was under attack. And it is now black who has to show what is his idea. In the game, Magnus, he understood he has to play very quiet, and he improved the position of his rooks in the next moves. After knight c3, of course, knight b4. This is a very important move for black. And here I was a bit surprised. I was expecting rook ac1, but Nepo went with the other rook to c1, which was a bit surprising to me. I thought this was to keep the control on the a file, but probably the idea is that after rook c8, which happened in the game, if we played this rook, then after the idea knight e2, which happened in the game, black has this stupid idea, knight a2 and knight b4 back. And maybe this was a bit annoying for Nepo. That's why he went rook ec1. In fact, also on the e file, there was nothing really serious to do. And as I said before, both players were thinking a bit more here. The position becomes very strategical. Magnus, he improved the other rook with rook c8, knight e2, trying to bring the knight to the king side, knight c6, bishop e3 with some ideas, with d4 maybe. And here Magnus played a very good move in my opinion, knight e7. He's bringing the knight to some other squares and fighting against white's plan. Also, if d4, he can maybe attack immediately knight f5. And, well, I mean, the bishop on e3 is pretty important. That's why after knight e7, white was thinking for a while, and I believe he made a mistake, because I was expecting something like knight g3. Well, improving the position of the knight, controlling f5. Of course, the position is pretty equal, but, well, at least white is not worst. But in the game, it was a bit dangerous. He went bishop f4. It looks logical, because he's going to kill the pair of bishops of his opponent. But we will see that it made life quite easy for black, because after the first sequence, bishop f3, take, rook c6, suddenly white is through, still a pawn up, but the weaknesses on the king side are very clear, and he has to be careful because his rooks are a bit far away, and black can organize an attack very fast on the king side. So this position was a bit dangerous. After rook e1, which was very natural, knight f5, pretending to jump to d4, then white had to play c3. And here, probably with g5, the game could be pretty drawish. White maybe should play rook e5 and take, and this can be probably kind of draw very soon. But Magnus played the natural, ambitious move, knight h4. I like this move. He's provoking the rook to be passive, and now he went king f8. Maybe g6 was probably slightly more precise, but still, it's difficult to criticize these moves. Both players, they were thinking a bit more, so they had to be careful not to get into time trouble to move 40. Let's remind you that there is no increment. Only after move 61 they get 1 hour for 40 moves, and then 1 more hour, 2 hours for 40 moves, and then 1 more hour for the next 20 moves, but without increment. So this makes it dangerous to get into time travel. Here the position is, well, not very exciting, but it was not clear that it's a complete draw. White is still a pawn up. Now Nepo, he protected his pawn on d3 with the knight, and Magnus was maneuvering his knight wants maybe to come to e6 and f4, and white played rook e4. Probably the idea is b4, getting rid of this double pawn, and that's why black played f5. The rook had to go back, knight e6, knight g2, controlling the knight's jump. And in this moment, black played a very nice move, which suddenly made it unclear if white could be worst. The move is b4. It's a very nice move. The knight is ready to jump if white takes or advance. Let's see, c4, knight d4. This could be very good for black, or of course take, also with ideas to jump, to enter. This is really dangerous for white. And then here a lot of people was thinking that maybe white is in bad shape, but I saw a plan, and this was finally played by Nepo. I mean, the most natural move here, because black wants to play rook b8, take, and take on b3. What to do with white? The move which Nepo played, in my opinion, king e2. It's a good idea. Of course, black is going to get his pawn back, but white is improving his position a lot. Now with the king on c2, he's controlling the queen side. Of course, now the white can be slightly better, maybe because the double pawns, but without queens and without there are no open lines against these weak pawns, so probably it's not enough for black to be better. In this moment, white played h4, grabbing some space on the king side, and here it's very important to notice that the move knight d4 check, which looks very nice, because if pawn takes, and black takes the rook, because the check. But it's really going to nowhere, because after knight d4, white can simply play king d1. And the knight has to come back, and black gets nothing. But That's why at this moment there was a very tricky move which computer gives. Probably this was the only opportunity which Magnus missed in this game. It was very delicate and probably not enough to win. But the move was a5, setting a trap. If white takes the pawn, now black is winning with knight d4 check, because after king d1 there is a second check, and here there are a lot of tricks. The main probably is rook b6, one to checkmate, and after take, if the rook moves, we have a checkmate. Black is winning because after a couple of checks, white is going to lose material in this position to save his king. So this was a very beautiful end for this game. Of course, it didn't happen. After e5, then white cannot take, and he could play maybe something like rook e1, and then black can double. And all the endgames with rook b1 are pretty bad for black, because white can, sorry, for white, because black can have two passed pawns, one on h file, another one on a file, and this can be really nasty for white. But after rook b6, white could hold probably with rook a2, and I'm not so sure white is in trouble. I mean, it's clear computer likes black after a4. There are some ideas with a3. It has to be careful. Knight can jump to e3, knight e3, and black has a slight advantage here. But in the game, it was after h4, black played very natural move, king f7. It was move 38. They were close to the time control, not so much time on the clock. King f7 is very natural, but as we will see after rook e1, sometimes the king is not so well placed on f7, because there can be some checks. So in the game after king f6, white has time to bring his knight, and the position becomes pretty equal. After knight c4, there is the threat knight e5. Here there was a threat knight d5. Here still there was a chance for black to play knight f4. The idea is to control the jump and to improve the position of the black knight. But maybe Magnus was a bit scared of the move rook a4, which in fact it's a mistake. It was not easy to see that rook b2 check is probably winning here. Check, and the knight is a demon, taking everything on its way. But of course, after knight f4, white can simply play something like knight c4, and again the position is pretty equal in my opinion. The knight is very nice. a6 is weak. It's really a passed pawn, but it has really no prospects to improve, and the position is completely equal. In the game after rook d7, both players knew that this was going to be a draw. They started to repeat moves, and after 3 repetitions, they agreed to a draw. Well, interesting game, an interesting novelty, interesting idea, knight a5. We now know one of the ground battles, which will be the Ruy Lopez. We will see how the Russian team prepares against this martial attack. I'm sure we are going to witness some very exciting games, and I hope you will join us here on the ICC to see this analysis. See you on the game 2.